Imagine for a second that you're standing in the Oval Office, staring at a map that hasn't mattered since your grandfather bought war bonds. Greenland. That massive, ice-covered rock floating between North America and Europe like a frozen middle finger to geography itself. Now imagine you're so desperate to own it that you're willing to humiliate yourself on the international stage, again, just to plant a flag on permafrost. Here's the beautiful irony. While normal people are getting priced out of starter homes, the world's superpowers are engaged in a bidding war over an island that's 80% ice sheet and hosts fewer people than a mid-sized college football stadium. Greenland has roughly 56,000 inhabitants. You've been in shopping malls with bigger crowds. But suddenly, this frozen wasteland is worth more than its weight in lithium. The United States has tried to buy Greenland twice now. Once in 1946, and again in 2019, when a certain president floated the idea like a luxury condo pitch and got laughed out of Copenhagen. But the laughter has stopped, because while you were doom-scrolling through inflation memes, the Arctic became the new Middle East. Except instead of oil, it's rare earth minerals. Instead of sand, it's melting ice revealing shipping routes. And instead of decades-old proxy wars, we're watching the opening act of a resource grab that will define your economic reality for the next 50 years. Let's rewind to where this madness began. 1946. World War II had just ended. America was high on victory and terrified of the Soviets. The proposal was simple. Offer Denmark $100 million for Greenland, about $1.5 billion in today's monopoly money, and secure permanent strategic dominance. Denmark said no. Here's the original sin. America walked away, built military bases anyway, and assumed the Arctic would stay frozen and irrelevant forever. They treated Greenland like a giant aircraft carrier made of ice, useful for radar stations, but ultimately static Cold War furniture. Everyone moved on. Except geology doesn't care about your geopolitical assumptions. Neither does climate change. As temperatures rose, Greenland's ice sheet began its slow-motion collapse. And underneath all that ice, a geological jackpot that makes California's gold rush look like a lemonade stand. We're talking rare earth elements: neodymium, dysprosium, praseodymium, the minerals that make your smartphone vibrate, your Tesla accelerate, and your military's missiles actually guide. Greenland has an estimated 38.5 million tons of rare earth oxides. That's enough to build batteries for hundreds of millions of electric vehicles. But here's the trillion-dollar twist. China currently controls 70% of global rare earth production and 90% of processing capacity. The United States outsourced the entire production of materials critical to modern technology and defense to its primary geopolitical rival. It's the economic equivalent of letting your opponent manufacture all the bullets during a gunfight. By the time American policymakers woke up to the new Arctic reality, Greenland had already become a geopolitical auction house. China started financing airports and mines. Russia militarized its Arctic coastline. And the United States? They did what they always do when they arrive late. They tried to buy the whole venue. The bitter irony? Climate change, the crisis created by unchecked industrial capitalism, has opened up a whole new frontier for more unchecked capitalism. The ice melted because we couldn't stop burning fossil fuels. And now, the exposed treasure is valuable precisely because we need it to transition away from fossil fuels. You couldn't write satire this perfect. Here's where the addiction kicks in. The global economy has built itself a beautiful trap. We've mandated a green future that requires strip mining the Arctic. Every government has banned combustion engines and promised clean energy utopia. There's just one problem. The entire transition depends on materials we don't control. Your electric vehicle mandate needs rare earths. Your wind turbines? Rare earths. Your smartphones, your military drones, your entire digitized infrastructure? All rare earths. And the dominant supplier is China, a country that weaponizes resource access. In 2010, during a dispute with Japan, China simply cut off rare earth exports. Japan's tech industry nearly had a heart attack. The message was clear. We control the spice, we control the universe. Enter Greenland as the West's great hope for mineral independence. Except it's not some uninhabited rock. It's a semi-autonomous territory with its own government and ambitions. The Greenlandic government has been dangling mining rights like a dealer at a poker table, watching superpowers bid against each other. China nearly won a bid to build 3 airports in Greenland in 2018. The United States panicked so hard, they reopened a consulate in Nuuk that had been closed since 1953. Nothing says "we care" like remembering you exist only when your rival shows up with a checkbook. Nobody can stop. America can't back down because admitting China might control Arctic resources would be political suicide. China can't stop because rare earth dominance is central to their strategy. Russia can't ignore the Arctic because it's their northern border. And those new shipping routes? They could save $300 billion annually. Whoever controls the ports will have leverage over trillions in commerce. We've become addicted to a resource race triggered by the very climate crisis we refuse to address. The faster the ice melts, the more valuable Greenland becomes. We're profiting from our own apocalypse. It's like an arsonist who invested in fire extinguisher companies. Now let's talk about what this means for you. Because while diplomats negotiate, there are real human costs accumulating like interest on a loan nobody agreed to take out. Start with the Greenlanders. 56,000 people who never asked to become the most strategically valuable population per capita on Earth. Their unemployment rate hovers around 9%. Youth suicide rates are among the highest in the world. They're sitting on a $1 trillion lottery ticket they're not allowed to cash. The Greenlandic government wants independence, but independence requires economic viability, which requires resource extraction, which requires foreign investment, which requires selling access to the very superpowers they'd need independence from. You can't be independent if Chinese mining companies own your economy. The mining operations everyone's salivating over? Environmental catastrophes waiting to happen. Rare earth extraction is one of the dirtiest industrial processes on the planet. The waste goes into unregulated ponds in China. In Greenland, it would go into one of the most pristine ecosystems on Earth. But let's bring this back to your trench. Every escalation in the Arctic resource race drives up the cost of the green transition you're being forced into. Want an electric vehicle? The price depends on rare earth availability. Want solar panels? Same supply chain. Every percentage point China raises rare earth prices is a tax on your cost of living that no politician voted for. Here's what should make you furious. This scarcity was engineered through policy negligence. The United States had rare earth mines. They closed them because Chinese production was cheaper. Mountain Pass Mine in California shut down in 2002. Now we're scrambling to reopen them, but it takes 7 to 10 years. You'll be 10 years older, 10 years deeper in debt before these solutions produce anything. The human toll is your diminished purchasing power. It's the electric vehicle you can't afford but will be forced to buy. It's energy costs passed through your utility bills. It's inflation that statistics say is moderating while your grocery bill says otherwise. You're told this is for your benefit, but the execution created a system where you bear the costs while benefits accrue to whoever controls the choke points. Chinese processors, mining executives, defense contractors. Now, the spectacle. The final irony isn't that America wants to buy Greenland, it's that buying it wouldn't solve anything. Even if Denmark sold and Greenlanders consented, America still wouldn't achieve rare earth independence. Owning the rocks isn't the same as processing them. China spent 3 decades building the industrial ecosystem to refine rare earths. Building processing capacity from scratch would take 15 to 20 years and cost hundreds of billions. So even if America plants its flag tomorrow, they'd still ship raw ore to China for processing. You'd own the mine, but rent the refinery from your rival. You haven't achieved independence, just more expensive dependence with better optics. Let's say America goes all in, buys Greenland, builds facilities, achieves self-sufficiency by 2040. Congratulations, you've created an environmental disaster in your backyard. Rare earth processing produces radioactive waste and toxic pollution. China accepted this cost because authoritarian governments ignore protests. Can America? Will communities welcome refineries the way they've fought lithium mines? Of course not. Here's the beauty. The green transition is creating more emissions than it prevents short-term. Mining and processing rare earths is carbon intensive. We're strip mining the Arctic for a transition that won't reduce emissions for decades. We're burning the village to save it, except the village is the planet. Every move toward Greenland pushes Russia and China closer together. Russia has Arctic coastline and resources. China has money and processing capacity. American aggression accelerates their partnership. You've created the alliance you feared. But here's the darkest irony. Even if everything worked, it wouldn't matter for you. Benefits would accrue to contractors and corporations, while costs get socialized. Your electricity would still be expensive. Your taxes would still fund bases protecting private operations. You'd still be poorer, just with different billionaires getting rich. So what have we learned? Absolutely nothing. The scramble for Greenland isn't an aberration, it's the natural state of geopolitics. Here's your cynical verdict. The fight will continue, because admitting futility would require admitting the entire architecture of power is built on maintaining problems rather than solving them. America will keep pushing because doing nothing signals weakness. China will keep investing because exclusion is unacceptable. Russia will keep militarizing because paranoia is cheaper than trust. Meanwhile, you'll adapt to eroding purchasing power and rising costs while being told it's for the greater good. The green transition will happen because governments mandated it and corporations found money in managed scarcity. You'll buy that electric vehicle eventually because you'll have no choice. The lessons that should be learned won't be, because learning them requires admitting previous generations failed catastrophically. Easier to frame everything as unprecedented, despite people foreseeing it and being ignored. Don't expect governments to develop competence. You're living through a resource transition planned poorly and executed worse. The question isn't whether you'll pay, you will, but whether you'll understand why. Diversify dependencies because supply chains built on geopolitical tension will fail. Expect higher costs for anything requiring rare earths. Don't trust official timelines. They're political aspirations, not reality. When powerful entities fight over resources, regular people provide funding and receive consequences. Greenland is just the latest stage for this ancient play. The trillion-dollar island represents everything wrong with how we approach challenges. Reactive instead of proactive, performative instead of substantive, profitable for elites and expensive for everyone else. The lessons won't be learned because learning requires systemic change, and systems don't change until they collapse. Until then, we'll keep scrambling, keep pretending that buying our way out of problems will lead to solutions. It won't. But it will keep people employed in empire management. Welcome to the trillion-dollar island nobody will buy, the crisis nobody will solve, and the future nobody planned for but everyone will pay for. The ice is melting, the bills are coming due, and the only thing frozen solid is the political will to do anything meaningful. At least the irony is still plentiful. That's renewable.